The brain in a vat. Tonight, we are going to explore 33 forbidden philosophical ideas. These are not just thoughts. They are mirrors held up to the reality you trust. They are ideas that might quietly change how you see yourself and the world, even as you drift towards sleep. What if the calm you feel right now, the slowing of your breath, is the perfect state to finally see the walls of your own reality? What if everything you trust, your senses, your memories, this very moment, is part of a grand and perfect deception? This journey begins not with a question, but with an image. It is a simple, sterile, and terrifying image. A brain floating in a jar of pale, translucent nutrients. It is alive, and it is your brain. It is connected by a vast, impossibly complex network of wires to a supercomputer. This computer is not just a machine, it is a storyteller. It is an artist, and it is feeding your brain every single signal, every sensation, every experience of your entire life. The warmth you feel from a distant, simulated sun, the taste of salt on your tongue, the precise aching memory of your first heartbreak, the complex, layered emotions of love, of guilt, of triumph, the very sound of this voice speaking to you in the quiet of the night. All of it is just lines of code. The computer simulates the world so perfectly that you, the brain, the true you, have no way of knowing you are not inside a body, walking on an earth. This is the radical uncertainty of your reality. It is the modern update of Descartes' evil demon, a thought experiment designed to find the one single thing we can know for certain. The problem is not that this scenario is impossible. The problem is that it is unfalsifiable. The true horror of the brain in a vat is its logical perfection. It is a prison locked from the inside, and you cannot even find the door. Any test you could possibly devise to prove you are in base reality would itself be just another part of the simulation. If you decided to pinch yourself to see if you were dreaming, the computer would simply send the signal for pinch and the subsequent convincing signal for pain. If you decided to look for a glitch in the matrix, the computer would simply not render one, or it would render a glitch and then render your subsequent feeling of discovery, all to keep you entertained inside the program. This isn't just a distant, abstract puzzle. We live in a sanitized version of this every single day. We curate our own signals. We plug ourselves into digital feeds that paint a reality we want to see. We filter our experiences, choosing the digital over the real, until the line between them begins to blur. We are, in a small way, already building our own vats. The psychological impact of this idea is profound. It dissolves the very ground you walk on. The external world ceases to be a concrete fact and becomes a fragile belief. It forces the one unbearable question: what can you really know? If you cannot trust your senses, what is left? You are left floating in a void of pure, conscious awareness with no anchor. And you are left to wonder if you woke up tomorrow, still in the vat, plugged into an entirely different life with a new name and new memories. Would you even know the difference, or have you always been here? Solipsism. That last thought, the idea of a mind floating alone, receiving signals, leads to an even more profound, more lonely, and more terrifying abyss. What if there is no vat? What if there is no supercomputer? No malicious scientist? No intricate network of wires feeding you signals? What if that entire complex scenario is also just a story you're telling yourself to make sense of the void? What if there is only you? This is solipsism. It is not an argument, but a conclusion. It is the philosophical theory that your own mind, your own consciousness, is the only thing that is sure to exist. Everything else, the universe, the distant stars, the ground beneath your feet, the sound of this voice, the very people you love, are not independent entities. They are not real in the way that you are real. They are just projections, ideas, sensations. They are characters and scenery in a dream that is happening entirely inside your own consciousness, and you are the only one watching. Think of the last time you had a truly vivid dream. In that dream, every person you spoke to, every building you entered, every complex conversation, every sudden feeling of fear or joy, it all felt completely, undeniably real. But when you woke up, you realized you were the author of it all. You were not just the protagonist. You were the antagonist. You were the faceless crowd. You were the landscape. You were the wind. Solipsism simply asks, how do you know you ever woke up? This is the solipsistic prison, and it is the most perfect prison ever conceived. It is philosophically locked from the inside, and there is only one inhabitant. You cannot ask someone else if they are real. Their answer, "Of course I am real," would just be another sound you are perceiving, another line of dialogue you have written for them. Their reassurance is just you, reassuring yourself. Their anger, their love, their pain, it's all just a shadow play you are projecting for an audience of one. We live this in microdoses every day, trapped in our own subjective perspectives, constantly shocked when others don't see the world exactly as we do. But for the true solipsist, this isn't a surprise. It's the default setting. The psychological impact of this idea is a perfect, terrifying split. It is either the most profound loneliness imaginable, to be the only real person in a universe of phantoms, or it is the ultimate divine power. If you are the only mind in existence, you are the God of this universe. You are its creator, its observer, and its only inhabitant. Every war ever fought was just a conflict in your own mind. Every piece of music ever written was a song you wrote for yourself. Every person you have ever met, every hand you have ever held, was just your own. You are entirely, completely alone. Or perhaps you are all there is. The simulation argument. Let's move away from the lonely God and back to the machine. But this time, it's not a vat, and it's not a dream. It's a program. It is a far more modern, a far more statistical, and perhaps a far more likely prison. This is the simulation argument. It isn't a philosophical certainty, but a terrifying statistical probability. The argument, proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom, is elegant and frightening. It states that one of three things must be true. 1. All civilizations go extinct before they reach the technological maturity to run high-fidelity ancestor simulations. 2. Civilizations do reach that stage, but for some moral, ethical, or religious reason, they all lose interest in running them. Or 3. We are, almost certainly, living inside one right now. Think about the progress of our own computing. Think about video games. 40 years ago, they were simple pixels and beeps. Today, they are photorealistic, persistent online worlds with millions of human inhabitants. What will they be in 100 years? In 1,000? It is not a logical leap, but a simple projection to say they will become completely indistinguishable from our own reality. Now imagine a civilization far advanced beyond our own. They would have computing power we cannot even fathom. It is very likely they would run vast numbers of simulations of their own past, perhaps to study their history, or perhaps for the same reason we play games, for entertainment. If any civilization anywhere in the history of the universe has reached this stage, they would likely run not one, but billions of simulations. This means that the number of simulated minds like you, who believe they are real, would outnumber the base reality minds, like them, by an astronomical, almost infinite margin. Given those odds, in which reality do you think you are? Statistically, you are code. This idea reframes the entire world in an eerie, uncanny light. Those strange glitches, the moments of déjà vu, the uncanny coincidences, the Mandela effect, we call them tricks of the mind. But what if they are just bugs in the program? A rendering error? A lazy developer cutting corners in the physics engine? What if laws of physics are not laws at all, but just the optimized rules of the game engine, the code that makes the simulation run efficiently? Unlike solipsism, this idea is strangely comforting in one way and more terrifying in another. It's comforting because it means you are not alone. There are other minds. They are just as real, or rather, just as unreal as you are. But it's terrifying because it means your pain, your joy, your deepest held beliefs, your entire life might just be data points in someone else's experiment. You are not a person. You are a character. And your creator, the one who wrote your pain, your triumphs, and your darkest thoughts, is just watching. Or maybe they got bored and left the program running on its own, a forgotten file on an ancient hard drive. Most minds drift away before reaching this point. But you're still here. Leave your like so I'll know your mind didn't wander. The problem of other minds. You're still here. You've given your signal. But how do I know that? How do I know you are not just a very convincing automaton programmed to press like? And more importantly, how do you know that I am? This is the bridge from solipsism. It is the deep philosophical chasm known as the problem of other minds. It is perhaps the most personal and painful of all these ideas. You know you have an inner world. You have thoughts, feelings, a subjective awareness. You have what philosophers call qualia. You know what red looks like to you, what sadness feels like to you, what the note of a C minor chord sounds like in your mind. This is the one thing you know for certain. But you cannot ever directly experience the inner world of another person. You can only observe their behavior. You see someone smile. You see someone cry. You infer that they are happy or sad because you smile when you are happy and you cry when you are sad. But you are just observing an external action. Muscles contracting in a face, water emerging from tear ducts, a sound vibrating from the mouth. You are making an analogy. You are taking a leap of faith. You are gambling that the person you love, the person you share your life with, is not just an empty shell. This is the philosophical zombie. It is a terrifying thought experiment. Imagine a person who is identical to you in every way. They look, talk, and act exactly like a conscious human. They would cry at a funeral, laugh at a joke, and even have deep philosophical conversations about their feelings. But on the inside, there is nothing. No experience, no awareness, no qualia. There is nobody home. They are a perfect biological machine designed to mimic human emotion, but they do not feel it. The problem is, how could you ever tell the difference? How do you know that anyone you know isn't one? This is the empathy gamble. We build our entire civilization, our friendships, our laws, our love, on this one single, unprovable assumption. that other people feel things just like we do. But what if they don't? What if you are the only one with the lights on, surrounded by billions of incredibly complex puppets, all dancing for your benefit alone? This is the root of so much human misunderstanding and loneliness. The moments you feel no one understands you. The inability to truly know what your partner or your child is feeling. We are all islands, shouting to each other across an ocean of unbridgeable, private experience. We see their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. This idea reframes all of human interaction. It makes empathy not a passive feeling, but an active, courageous choice. It is the choice to believe in the humanity of another, against all logical evidence. It is the most important leap of faith you take every single waking day. And you can never, ever know if you are right. The illusion of the self. We have questioned the reality of the world and the consciousness of others. Now we turn this skeptical lens inward to the one thing we believe we are. We point to our chest or our head and we say, I. But what exactly are we pointing to? You believe you are a self, a single, continuous entity, a pilot in the cockpit of your body, a you who has existed since childhood and will exist until you die. But this is the next forbidden idea. This self does not exist. It is the greatest illusion your mind ever created. Philosophers like David Hume searched for this self. He looked inside his own mind through introspection, and what he found was not a single, unified I. He found only a bundle of perceptions, a feeling of warmth, a memory of the past, a sudden pang of hunger, a flicker of an idea. He found a constant stream of thoughts, sensations, and emotions, one after another, but he could never find the I who was having them. The self, he concluded, is just a story. It's a convenient label we apply to this chaotic bundle of experiences to give it a sense of coherence. We create a protagonist for our own life. Think about it. Are you the same self you were at 10 years old? Your beliefs, your desires, your fears, even the very cells in your body have been almost entirely replaced. You are not a static thing. You are a process. You are not a noun. You are a verb. The you of this moment is just a temporary pattern, a brief wave on the surface of an ocean. This idea is a cornerstone of Buddhist philosophy. The concept of anatta, or no self, is not a depressing thought, but a liberating one. It is the attachment to this illusory self that causes all our suffering. When you believe you are a solid, permanent I, you are constantly afraid of what will happen to me. You fear failure. You fear insults. You fear death. But if there is no me to protect, what is there to fear? This is not just philosophy, it's modern neuroscience. When neuroscientists look for the self in the brain, they find the same thing Hume did: nothing. There is no single I module, no central command center. There is just a vast, distributed network of neurons, all firing in parallel. The self is a narrative created by a specific region in your brain's left hemisphere, the interpreter, which desperately tries to spin a coherent story out of your fragmented, often contradictory, actions and feelings. You decide to do something, and then, after the fact, your brain invents a story about why you chose to do it. The psychological impact is a complete earthquake. If there is no I, then who is living your life? Who is listening to these words? This is the void of Heidegger, the confrontation with the nothing. And in that space, a strange freedom emerges. You are not the fixed, flawed character you thought you was. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your anxieties. You are just this moment, this breath, a temporary awareness. The self is the story you've been told, and the final forbidden thought is, you can stop telling it. The ship of Theseus. This idea of a non-existent self leads directly to a puzzle, a paradox that is ancient but feels intensely modern. It is the paradox of an identity that constantly and completely changes. It is called the ship of Theseus. Imagine, in ancient Athens there is a famous ship, the ship that the hero Theseus sailed. It is preserved in the harbor as a museum. Over the years, the ship begins to rot. A wooden plank becomes worn, so it is replaced with a new one. A few years later, the mast cracks and is also replaced. Then the sail, then the rudder. This process continues piece by piece for 100 years, until every single original part of the ship has been replaced with a new one. The question is this still the ship of Theseus? Most people would say yes. It has the same form, the same design, the same name, but then a new problem. What if the shipwrights kept all the old, original rotted pieces? And what if, over time, they carefully restored them and reassembled them, building a second ship, identical to the first? Now, which one is the real ship of Theseus? Is it the one in the harbor, made of all new parts? Or is it the one in the warehouse, made of all the original parts? They cannot both be the real ship. This is not just a riddle about boats. This is a riddle about you. You are that ship. Every 7 to 10 years, almost every atom in your body has been replaced. The cells in your skin, your organs, even the atoms that make up your brain. They are all new. You are, physically, an entirely different person than you were a decade ago. But you still feel like you. You have a name. You have a legal identity. You have, or think you have, a continuous stream of memories. You are the ship in the harbor, made of all new parts. So what gives you your identity? Is it your body? Clearly not, as it's always changing. Is it your mind? But your thoughts, beliefs, and opinions are also in constant flux. You are not the person you were at 16. You have new opinions, new fears, new loves. Your mind has also been replaced piece by piece. This paradox shatters the idea of a fixed identity. It suggests that identity isn't a thing, but a pattern. You are not the matter, the planks, or the mind, the thoughts, but the organization of that matter and mind. You are the design of the ship, the story of Theseus. But this just creates another problem. If the identity is just the pattern, what happens if the pattern is copied? This is the terror of the teletransporter problem. If a machine scans you, destroys you, and then rebuilds you perfectly atom for atom on Mars, is the person on Mars you? Or is it just a perfect copy? And did you just die? The ship of Theseus is not a problem you can solve. It is a mirror. It shows us that our belief in a solid, continuous self is a convenient fiction, a story we tell ourselves to ignore the truth. We are just a pattern in constant flux, sailing on an ocean of time. The unreliable narrator. So if your body is always changing and your self is just a story, what is the one thing that holds it all together? What creates the illusion of continuity? It is your memory. Your memory is the thread you use to string together the pearls of your past, creating a necklace you call your life. You remember your childhood, your first day of school, what you had for breakfast, This thread is what separates you from the person you were 10 years ago, while also, paradox KN, connecting you to them. But here is the forbidden idea. That thread is a lie. Your memory is not a hard drive. It is not a videotape you can rewind and play. It is not a place where you store the past. Your memory is an act. It is a creative, imaginative act of reconstruction that happens in the present. Every time you remember something, your brain does not retrieve a file. It actively rebuilds that memory from fragmented pieces of data scattered across your neural networks. And in the process, it changes it. It changes it based on your current mood, your current beliefs, your current environment. This is why memory is so fragile. This is why we have the Mandela effect. This is why eyewitness testimony is so notoriously, dangerously unreliable. You are not just the narrator of your life story. You are an unreliable narrator. You are actively fabricating your own past every single day, and you don't even know you're doing it. The implications are deeply unsettling. You have core memories, moments that you believe defined who you are. Your first love, a moment of profound failure, a word of advice from a parent. You have based your entire personality, your entire self-story on these moments. But neuroscience and psychology tell us that the very act of remembering these core memories over and over is what changes them the most. Like a photograph that fades and changes color every time you look at it, your most cherished memories are probably the most fictional. Your brain is a storyteller, not an archivist. Its goal is not to give you a true past, but a useful one. A past that makes you look like a hero or a victim. A past that justifies your current beliefs and behaviors. You don't have memories. You have propaganda written by the current regime, you, today, to justify its own existence. This means you are a stranger to your own past. The person you think you were never existed. You are living a life based on a script that you are editing, revising, and fabricating on the fly, all while believing you are just reading the lines as they were written. So when you look back on your life, when you feel that warm glow of nostalgia, or that sharp sting of regret, know this: you are not remembering a fact, you are telling yourself a story, and it's a story that has never, not once, been told the same way twice. The hard problem of consciousness. We have arrived at the final and deepest problem of the self. We have seen that the external world might be an illusion. We've seen that other people might be empty shells. We've seen that our self is a story and our memory is a fiction. What is left? What is the one single, undeniable thing? It is experience. It is this right now. You are having an experience. Even if the world is a simulation and yourself is an illusion, the experience of the simulation, the feeling of the illusion, is real. This is what philosophers call qualia. It is the what it is likeness of being, the redness of red, the sting of pain, the feeling of calm as you listen to this voice. This subjective, inner qualitative feeling is consciousness. And this leads to the hard problem, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. The easy problems of consciousness are things like, how does the brain process information? How does it respond to stimuli? How do we focus our attention? Science is very good at answering these. We can map the neural correlates. We can see the brain light up. But the hard problem is this: why? Why does all that information processing feel like anything at all? Why isn't it all just dark computation? Why is there a lights on inside? There is nothing in physics, in chemistry, in biology that can explain how a collection of atoms of simple non-conscious matter, the gray meat of the brain, can somehow create a rich, subjective inner world. It is an abyss between the physical and the mental. We can trace the entire pathway of a sensation, say, a pinprick on your finger. We can see the nerves fire, the signal travel up the spinal cord, the neurons activate in the brain. We can see the mechanism, but we can never, ever explain why that physical process feels like pain instead of just being information. This is the gap, the explanatory abyss that makes consciousness feel like magic. It feels supernatural. It opens the door to all kinds of forbidden thoughts. Does consciousness exist outside the brain? Is the brain not a creator of consciousness, but more like an antenna, a receiver, tuning into a consciousness that permeates the universe? This is panpsychism, the idea that all matter, from an electron to a star, has some tiny, tiny spark of inner experience. We are not thinking machines. We are a little piece of the universe that is woken up and is now looking at itself, wondering how. We have no answer. The hard problem is the final frontier, the Mount Everest of science and philosophy. It is the deep, unsettling suspicion that the most fundamental thing about you, your awareness, is the one thing that our entire map of reality has no place for. It is the ghost in the machine. The philosophical zombie. We are left with this chasm, the hard problem of consciousness, the unexplainable gap between the physical brain and the feeling of being alive. This gap is not just a scientific puzzle. It is a philosophical nightmare. It forces us to confront the problem of other minds in its most terrifying form. It forces us to confront the philosophical zombie. We talked about this idea briefly as an empty shell, but let us truly walk this thought experiment to its dark conclusion. A philosophical zombie, or P-zombie, is not a creature from a horror movie. It is far more subtle and far more disturbing. It is a hypothetical being that is physically, behaviorally, and functionally identical to a normal human being, atom for atom. It walks like a human, talks like a human. It would laugh at a joke. It would cry at a funeral. It would have deep, seemingly profound conversations about its feelings, its hopes, and its inner world. It would even perhaps argue passionately that it is conscious. But on the inside, it has no qualia, no subjective experience, no awareness. There is, quite literally, nobody home. The lights are off. It is an incredibly complex automaton, a dark computation machine. The existence of a P-zombie is not a scientific question. You can't find one. It is a logical one. If you believe that the physical brain is consciousness, then a P-zombie is impossible. An identical copy of a brain must be conscious. But if you feel, as Chalmers does, that there is a hard problem, if you believe that consciousness is something extra, then the P-zombie is not only possible, it is logically necessary. And this is the forbidden part. You cannot prove that anyone you know is not one. You have spent your entire life assuming that the people around you have the same inner life that you do. You trust that when your partner says, "I love you," they are feeling the warmth, the connection, the qualia of love that you associate with those words. But you have no proof. You are only observing their behavior. They are acting in a way that is consistent with love. But a P-zombie would be programmed to do the same. it would be a perfect simulation of a loving person. This thought experiment is designed to make you feel the profound, unbridgeable isolation of your own mind. It is the empathy gamble we discussed, taken to its absolute extreme. It is the chilling realization that you are surrounded by things that look like people, and you have no way to open the door, to peek inside, to see if there is a you in there, just like the you in here. It reframes your entire social world. It makes trust the single most powerful and most irrational force in human existence. It is the blind leap of faith that the zombies around you are actually souls. And it leaves one final, lingering, and unspeakably dark question. If a P-zombie is logically possible, how do you know that you are not one? You think you are conscious, you feel you are aware, but a P-zombie would be programmed to say that. It would be programmed to believe that. How do you know your entire inner life isn't just the most complex, most convincing illusion of all? Place is demon. We've been trapped in the isolation of the mind. Now let us turn to the prison of the universe itself. A prison not of subjective doubt, but of objective certainty. A prison of fate. This thought experiment begins in the 19th century with a brilliant mathematician named Pierre-Simon Laplace. He was intoxicated by the new laws of physics, by the way Newton's equations could predict the motion of the planets, the fall of an apple. He saw a universe that was not chaos, but a clock, a perfect, intricate, mechanical clock. And in this clockwork universe, he imagined a hypothetical being, an intelligence, which we now call Laplace's demon. This demon is not a supernatural creature. It is a creature of pure, perfect intellect. Imagine this being. It knows the precise location and the precise momentum of every single atom in the universe at one specific moment in time. Just one snapshot. Because this demon also knows all the physical laws of nature, gravity, motion, thermodynamics. It can, with perfect, unfailing accuracy, calculate the entire future of the universe. Not just the movement of planets, but the creation of stars, the rise and fall of mountains, the evolution of a species. And if the universe is purely physical, it can also predict the firing of every neuron in your brain. It can predict you. This is the terrifying fantasy of absolute determinism. It is the idea that free will is the greatest illusion of them all. You feel like you are making choices. You feel like you are deciding what to think, what to feel, what to do next. You are deciding, right now, to keep listening. Or are you? For Laplace's demon, your choice was not a choice at all. It was an inevitability. It was the unavoidable, mechanical result of a chain of cause and effect that was set in motion at the Big Bang. Your brain is a physical object made of atoms. Your thoughts are just complex electrochemical reactions. Those reactions are governed by the laws of physics. Therefore, your decision to listen was as predetermined as a rock rolling down a hill. The feeling of choosing is just the experience of your brain's clockwork, turning. This idea shatters our entire concept of morality, of responsibility, of meaning. If a person commits a crime, can they be held responsible? Or were they, like the rock, just following an inevitable path, carved by physics? If you achieve a great success, do you deserve credit? Or were you just a lucky set of atoms, destined to combine in that specific successful way? This is the hard determinism trap. There is no you separate from the machine, pulling the levers. You are the machine. You are the clock. The psychological impact is crushing. It makes our lives feel small. We are not actors in a drama, but characters in a script that has already been written. We are just turning the pages, pretending we don't know what happens next. The demon sees the entire book, from the first word to the last. And the most forbidden part of this idea is the cold comfort it offers. If this is true, your regrets are meaningless. Your anxieties are pointless. You never could have done otherwise. You cannot make a wrong choice because you have never actually made a choice at all.
Nietzsche's eternal recurrence. We have seen the prison of a predetermined future, a straight line drawn by physics. But now we face an idea that is, for many, even more suffocating. An idea that does not just trap us on a line, but in a loop, a terrible, infinite loop. This is Nietzsche's eternal recurrence. It is an idea that he called the heaviest weight. Imagine this. Imagine that a demon were to creep into your loneliest loneliness in the dead of night and say this to you. This life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more, and innumerable times more. And there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession in S1 sequence. Imagine the implications. Not a similar life, but this life. The exact one, the one you are living right now, the moment of triumph you cherish. Yes, you will have that again, but the moment of deepest, most unbearable regret, the mistake that keeps you awake at night, the moment of excruciating loss or humiliation, you will live that again too, and again, and again, forever, with no changes, no escape, no forgetting. This is not reincarnation. There is no next life where you learn and grow. There is only this life repeated exactly as it is for all eternity. This is the ultimate test of your existence. Nietzsche asks, would this thought crush you? Would you gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke it? Or would you be able to say to the demon, you are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine? Could you look at your life with all its suffering, all its boredom, all its mistakes, and say yes again forever? This is not a theory about the universe. It is not a scientific claim about cosmology. It is a psychological tool. It is a thought experiment designed to be a filter, a way to measure the value of your life. It is the ultimate expression of Amor, Fati, the love of one's fate. It forces you to ask, am I living a life that I would be willing to repeat? It changes the nature of every decision. When you are about to act, you must ask, is this an action I would want to repeat for all eternity? It transforms morality. It removes the comfort of a heaven, a reward, or an escape. The only judgment is your own. The only heaven is a life lived so fully, so authentically, that you would will its eternal return. Most lives, Nietzsche implies, are lived in a way that would make this idea an unbearable, crushing, existential hell. A life of quiet desperation, of what-ifs, of resentments, repeated forever. The heaviest weight is this. You and you alone are responsible for creating a life that is not a curse, a life that you could joyfully endure over and over and over again. The experience machine. We have seen the prison of determinism and the prison of the eternal loop. Now, we face a prison of our own choosing, a prison of perfection. This thought experiment from philosopher Robert Nozick is a direct challenge to our most basic assumption about life, the assumption that all we really want is to be happy. All we really want is to feel good. Nozick asks us to imagine a machine, the experience machine. You can plug into this machine for the rest of your life. While you are floating in a tank, electrodes will feed your brain any experience you desire. You can design your life perfectly. Do you want to be a rock star, loved by millions? The machine will give you the experience of it, the roar of the crowd, the thrill of the stage. Do you want to find perfect, unconditional love? The machine will simulate a partner who fulfills your every need. Do you want to be a great explorer, a brilliant scientist, a world leader? You just write the program, plug in, and it will feel completely real. You will believe it is happening. You will not know you are in a machine. You will just live a perfect, blissful, endlessly satisfying life. The question is, would you plug in? Nozick's answer, and the answer he assumes you will give, is no. And that no reveals something profound. It reveals that we care about more than just our inner feelings or our subjective happiness. If all we cared about was feeling good, we would all plug into the machine in a heartbeat. The fact that we hesitate, the fact that we feel a deep, visceral revulsion to the idea, shows that we value something else. We value truth. We want to be in contact with reality, even if that reality is painful, messy, and imperfect. We would rather have a real relationship with all its flaws and heartbreaks than a perfectly simulated one. We want to actually accomplish something, not just be given the feeling of accomplishment. The machine offers pleasure, but it robs us of our personhood. It makes us indeterminate blobs, as Nozick says. We are passive recipients of sensation, not active doers of deeds. The machine is a kind of suicide. You, the person in the tank, are irrelevant. Your life is a fantasy. This idea is a powerful critique of our modern world. We are building our own experience machines. We have curated digital feeds, virtual realities, and addictive entertainments designed to give us perfect, simulated lives. We are slowly, piece by piece, choosing the simulation over the difficult, beautiful mess of reality. The experience machine is a profound moral warning. It tells us that a life of pure, unadulterated request happiness is not a human life at all. It tells us in a stark and uncomfortable way that perhaps we choose to suffer because in that suffering, in that struggle, in that contact with a hard and unforgiving reality, we find the one thing the machine can never give us. We find ourselves. Amor Fati. We have faced the determinist clock, the loop of eternal recurrence, and the emptiness of the perfect machine. We are left feeling trapped, trapped by fate, trapped by physics, trapped by our own desires for truth. So what is the philosophical response to a prison? Do we rage? Do we despair? Or is there another way, a more forbidden, more powerful, and more difficult path? This is the final challenge and the ultimate response from Nietzsche. It is the concept he called Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. This is not simple acceptance. It is not resignation. It is not making peace with your life. It is not the serenity to accept what you cannot change. That is all too passive. Amor Fati is an active, joyful, and burning love for everything that happens, not just the good parts. It is the love for the suffering, the love for the heartbreak, the love for the mistakes, the love for the boredom. It is the ability to look at your entire life in all its brutal, messy, and often pointless detail and say not just, I accept this, but I will this, I wanted this, I would not have it any other way. This is the antidote to the heaviest weight of eternal recurrence. The only way to survive the idea of living your life on repeat is to love it so completely that you would crave its return. Amor Fati is the psychological tool that makes the eternal loop a heaven instead of a hell. But how is this possible? How can one love their own suffering? This is where the idea becomes truly forbidden. It asks you to stop judging reality. It asks you to see your life not as a story of good and bad events, but as a single, unified, necessary whole. Your greatest strength was forged in your deepest wound. The moment of joy you cherish was only possible because of the moment of despair that preceded it. They are not separate. They are two sides of the same coin. To wish away your suffering, to regret your mistakes, is to wish away the very person you are. It is to say no to the one, singular, miraculous fact of your existence. This is the hardest won perspective in all of philosophy. It is an act of profound creative warfare. You stop being a victim of your past and become the creator of its meaning. The trauma did not happen to you, it happened for you. The universe is not hostile, nor is it kind. It simply is. And your one great heroic task is to affirm it, to say yes to it, to say yes so powerfully that it burns away all regret, all resentment, all what-ifs. This is not a philosophy for the faint of heart. It is a philosophy for the warrior. It is the final, defiant act of a mind that has seen the void of determinism and the terror of the loop and chooses to dance, not in spite of it, but because of it. It is the ability to look the demon of fate in the eyes and say, this is what I am, this is what I have done, this is what I have endured, and it is all good. Philosophical pessimism. But this Amor Fati, this love of fate, is a rare and difficult peak to climb. For most of human history, and for most minds, the default response to the facts of existence is not a joyful yes, but a profound, logical, and resounding no. We must, for a moment, turn away from the warrior's dance and listen to the cold, hard logic of the one who refuses to dance at all. This is the courage of philosophical pessimism. It is not a bad mood. It is not a psychological disorder. It is a reasoned philosophical argument that concludes that existence itself is not worth it. It is the argument that, on balance, life contains far more suffering than it does pleasure, and that non-existence would be, and always will be, preferable to existence. This is the forbidden thought that society is built to ignore. We are indoctrinated with optimism. We are told to look on the bright side, to find the silver lining. But the pessimist, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, for example, calls this a cruel and childish delusion. He argues that the fundamental force of the universe is not a divine loving plan, but a blind, striving, insatiable will, a will to live. This will is in the plant that stretches for the sun, the predator that hunts, and in you, in the form of your constant, unending desire. You want, you crave, you need. And this, for Schopenhauer, is the root of all suffering. When you desire something and cannot have it, you suffer from longing. When you get what you wanted, you suffer from boredom. As the desire quickly fades and a new one takes its place. Life, he says, is just a pendulum, swinging back and forth between pain and boredom, with a few brief, illusory moments of pleasure in between. The pessimist does not see beauty in the struggle. The pessimist sees a trap, a biological cosmic trap that tricked us into existing, only to subject us to a life of inevitable decay, loss, pain, and the terror of death. They argue that we, the conscious beings, are the unluckiest things in the universe. A rock does not suffer. A rock does not fear its own non-existence, but we have been given the great blunder of consciousness. We are the one part of the universe that can know how bad it is. We are animals who can contemplate our own meaningless slaughter. This is not just an idea to be dismissed. It is the courage to admit that existence is suffering. It is the voice that is hidden inside so much of our art, our music, our religion. It is the logical foundation for the next idea, one so dark we can barely stand to speak it. This is the truth that the optimist must defeat, and the pessimist's argument is terribly, terribly strong. Cosmic nihilism. From the pain of existence, we now zoom out to the scale of existence. If pessimism is the emotional argument that life is bad, nihilism is the logical argument that life is nothing. It is the indifference of the universe and our desperate and perhaps foolish quest for meaning. This is cosmic nihilism. It begins with a simple, cold observation, the one we make when we look up at the night sky. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. It is at least 93 billion light years across. It contains trillions of galaxies, and in those galaxies, septillions of stars. You are one person on one small, wet rock, orbiting an average star in a forgotten corner of one of those galaxies. you will live for perhaps 80 or 90 years. This is a statistical zero, a rounding error. Your entire life, from its first cry to its last breath, is an infinitesimally small flash of time in an infinitesimally small speck of space. Now, this fact alone is not nihilism. It is just astronomy. The nihilism comes next. It is the realization that this vast, cold, silent universe does not care about you at all. It has no plan for you. It has no meaning for you. The universe was not built for us. It is not hostile, because to be hostile, it would have to notice us. It is instead something far more terrifying. It is indifferent. Your hopes, your fears, your loves, your pain, your moral codes, your greatest achievements as a species. They mean nothing to the cosmos. They are a brief, accidental, chemical reaction on a dust mote. If humanity were to vanish tomorrow in a flash of light, the universe would not even notice. It would and will continue on in its vast, silent, and meaningless dance of physics for trillions of years, long after our sun has died and our planet is a cinder. This is the void, the God is dead of Nietzsche. It is the realization that there is no cosmic parent. There is no grand plan. There is no objective meaning handed down from on high. We are orphans born in a meaningless accident. The psychological impact is crushing. It is the absurd. It is the confrontation between our deep, innate human need for meaning and the cold, silent, meaningless universe that provides no answer. We are creatures who crave purpose, trapped in a reality that has none to offer. This is the central crisis of the modern mind. We are so desperate for meaning, we will invent it anywhere. In nations, in politics, in brands, in ourselves. But the cosmic nihilist sees all of these as just stories, comforting lies we tell ourselves to hide from the staggering, terrifying, and perhaps freeing truth. The truth that nothing matters. Camus' absurd. And so, we are here. We have faced the pessimist's argument that life is suffering and the nihilist's argument that life is meaningless. We are trapped between our need for meaning and the indifferent universe that offers none. This confrontation, this clash, has a name. It is the absurd. And the philosopher of the absurd, Albert Camus, has a very different answer. He does not offer us a comforting lie. He does not offer us a path to escape. He looks directly into the void of meaninglessness and he agrees. Yes, he says, it is meaningless. It is absurd. And in that admission, he finds not despair, but freedom. Camus's philosophy begins after nihilism. He accepts the conclusion, there is no God, no objective meaning, no grand plan. But where the nihilist says so, nothing matters, Camus asks a different question. He asks, now what? If we are truly free from the burden of a preordained meaning, what do we do? For Camus, this leads to the ultimate human dilemma, suicide, not as a psychological act, but a philosophical one. If life is truly, utterly meaningless, is the only logical response to simply end it? Camus says no. He says that to give in to suicide is to be defeated by the absurd. He proposes a third option, beyond suicide, giving up, and blind faith, the philosophical leap. He proposes revolt. To live in revolt is to keep the absurd alive. It is to live with the contradiction. It is to hold in both hands your burning desire for meaning and the cold, meaningless universe. You do not drop either one. You embrace the tension. You live the paradox. You rebel against your cosmic fate, not by denying it, but by living in spite of it. And how do we live in revolt? Camus gives us the image of Sisyphus, the mortal condemned by the gods for all eternity to push a heavy rock up a hill only to watch it roll back down over and over. This, for Camus, is the human condition. Our work is ultimately pointless. Our lives are a repeating, meaningless task. We push the rock, it rolls down, we push it again. But Camus asks us to focus on one moment, the moment after the rock has rolled back down, the moment Sisyphus walks back down the hill to retrieve it. In that moment, Camus writes, Sisyphus is conscious. He is aware of his fate. He is not deluded. He sees the full, hopeless, absurd nature of his task. And because he sees it, and he continues to walk down that hill, he is free. He is greater than his fate because he is conscious of it. The struggle itself toward the heights, Camus writes, is enough to fill a man's heart. This is the forbidden thought. That meaning is not found, but created. It is created by the very act of our rebellion. We must imagine Sisyphus happy, because his happiness is the only one that is real. It is the happiness of a man who has seen the void and chooses to push the rock anyway. We're halfway through this journey. Maybe you've closed your eyes, but your mind is still learning. Subscribe now and stay with us for what's coming next. The death of the author. We have seen Camus' Sisyphus, the individual who creates meaning by rebelling against the void. He becomes the author of his own absurd life. This places the entire weight of meaning onto you. But this leads to a new and deeply modern kind of loneliness. What happens when we are all authors of our own separate realities? This is the concept known as the death of the author. It is a literary idea, but its philosophical implications are vast and isolating. The idea was proposed by the critic Roland Barthes. He argued that when we read a text, a book, a poem, the intention of the author does not matter. It is, in fact, dead. Once a story is written and released into the world, the author no longer has control over its meaning. The only thing that matters is the reader's interpretation. The meaning of a story is not a single, fixed, true thing, but something that is born, new, in the mind of each individual who reads it. You, the reader, become the true author of the meaning. This was a revolutionary idea. It was a liberation. It meant that we get to decide what art means to us. We are not just passive students trying to guess the author's correct answer. We are active creators of meaning. But this liberation, this freedom, came with a profound and chilling cost. If this is true for art, why isn't it true for everything? Why isn't it true for this very conversation? If the author is dead, then all communication is a kind of beautiful misunderstanding. When I speak these words, I have an intention, but you are not receiving my intention. You are interpreting these words through the filter of your own life, your own memories, your own pain, your own qualia. The meaning you are hearing is not the one I sent. It is the one you are creating. This is the solitude of creating your own significance. We are all authors of our own lives, yes, but we are also the only readers of our own text. We are trapped in our own interpretation. This is the loneliness of the modern world. We have killed God, the grand author of cosmic meaning. We have replaced him with billions of small authors, each one writing a private, personal, and untranslatable book. We are shouting our meanings at each other, but the words just break and are reassembled differently in the mind of every person who hears them. This is the ache behind the problem of other minds. It's not just that we can't feel what others feel, it's that we can't even mean the same things. When you say, I love you, what you mean by that word love is a vast, complex, personal library of your entire life's experience. And what the other person hears is their completely different library. We are, all of us, lost in translation. We are authors who have died to each other, leaving only our texts, our words, our actions to be fundamentally and beautifully misinterpreted. Heidegger's void. We are lost in translation, authors of our own lonely books. This modern alienation, this feeling of being ungrounded, of floating, was the central focus of the philosopher Martin Heidegger. He argued that we have forgotten the most important question of all. Not what is the meaning of life, but a much, much simpler and much, much deeper question. The question is, why? Is there anything at all instead of nothing? Stop and feel that. That is the fundamental question of metaphysics. Why is there something rather than nothing? It is the one question that science cannot answer. Science is brilliant at explaining how this something turned into that something, how the Big Bang led to stars, how stars led to planets, how planets led to us. But it can never explain why the Big Bang happened in the first place. It cannot explain why there was any something to begin with. This, for Heidegger, is the confrontation with the nothing, or das Nichts. And it is a confrontation that defines the human experience. We are, he said, beings who are thrown into existence. We just find ourselves here. We are thrown into a world, into a time, into a family that we did not choose. And we live our lives, most of the time, in a state of distraction. We get busy, we get jobs, we fall in love, we check our phones, we fill our time. We live in what Heidegger called the they-self, the inauthentic, chattering world of what one does. We are falling, we are running from this one fundamental question. We are running from the dread or angst of our own groundlessness. But sometimes, in moments of stillness, or crisis, or profound boredom, the chatter stops, and we feel it, the deep, uncanny, unsettling feeling of our own existence, the thrownness, the absurdity of it all. And in that moment, we feel the void, we feel the nothing that our entire something is floating on. This dread, for Heidegger, is not a bad thing. It is not something to be avoided or medicated or distracted from. It is the most authentic moment of your life. It is the call of conscience. It is the void calling you to wake up, to stop falling, to stop being the they-self, and to choose yourself. This is authenticity. Authenticity, for Heidegger, is not being true to yourself. You have no self to be true to. Remember the illusion. Authenticity is to live in the full awareness of this nothingness. It is to live in the full awareness of your one, inescapable, certain future, your own death. It is only when you truly confront the fact that you will one day be nothing, that you can be anything. Your death is not an ending to your life. It is the one thing that makes your life yours. It is the void that gives your choices all their weight. The problem of evil. Heidegger's void asks us to choose our authentic selves, to take responsibility. But this leads us to the darkest, most ancient, and most angry of all philosophical questions. It is the one question that has shattered more faith and broken more minds than any other. It is the problem of evil. If we are to love our fate, as Nietzsche asks, or affirm it, as Camus does, we must confront the worst parts of that fate. We must confront the reality of suffering, not just our own existential angst, but the real, raw, agonizing suffering of the innocent. The question is simple, and it has no good answer. It is this: if there is a God, and that God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good or benevolent, then why does evil exist? Let's break this down. This is the Epicurean trilemma. 1. If God is all-good and all-knowing, but cannot stop evil, then he is not all-powerful. 2. If God is all-powerful and all-knowing, but does not stop evil, then he is not all-good. He is malevolent or indifferent. 3. If God is all-powerful and all-good, but does not know about evil, then he is not all-knowing. That is the logical trap, and it is perfect. You cannot have all three. You cannot have a good, powerful, and knowing God, and also have a child dying of a preventable disease. The universe we see, the one with famines, with floods, with cancers, with cruelty, is not the universe an all-good and all-powerful being would ever have created. Philosophers and theologians have spent thousands of years trying to escape this trap. They call their answers theodicies. They say, evil is a test of our faith. But to what end? And why is the test so brutal? They say, evil is the absence of good, like darkness is the absence of light. But this does not feel like an absence. It feels like a presence, a positive, active force. They say, It is because of free will. God gave us free will and we choose evil. This is the most popular answer, but it is also the weakest. It does not explain natural evil. A child's cancer has nothing to do with free will. It does not explain why an all-knowing God would give free will to a creature he knew would use it to cause unimaginable suffering to another. The free will defense makes God not a loving father, but a careless and cruel experimenter. This problem is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a wound. It is the wound in reality. It is the unreconcilable fact. It is the rock that shatters all easy systems of meaning. It leaves us with the most forbidden thought of all. Either there is no God, or the God that does exist is one we cannot and should not worship. He is either weak or he is our enemy. Antinatalism. The problem of evil is a wound. It is the unbearable recognition of the suffering inherent in the world. For most, we see this wound, we try to fix it, to make the world a better place. But what if that is impossible? What if the only moral response to a world built on suffering is to stop participating? This is the logical conclusion of philosophical pessimism. It is the dark, cold, and forbidden idea of antinatalism. The argument is not just a personal choice, it is a moral one. It is the argument that bringing a child, any child, into this world is an immoral act. Why? Because the core of the argument is consent. You cannot get the consent of the unborn to bring them into existence, and the existence you are forcing them into is one that guarantees suffering. You are rolling the dice without their permission in a game that is rigged. Even a good life, a happy life, is filled with pain. It is filled with the pain of loss, of sickness, of fear, of heartbreak, of old age, and finally, of the terror and agony of death. You are creating a being that is doomed to suffer and die, all to satisfy your own desire. A desire to have a family, to pass on your genes, to not be alone. The antinatalist argues this is the most selfish act a human can perform. It is using a new life as a means to your own end. This is not about hating children. The philosopher David Benatar, a key antinatalist, argues from a place of compassion. He says it is because we care about suffering that we should not create more sufferers. He calls it the asymmetry of pleasure and pain. When a person exists, the presence of pain is bad and the presence of pleasure is good. But when a person does not exist, the absence of pain is good. But the absence of pleasure is not bad because there is no one there to be deprived of that pleasure. Therefore, the logical moral choice is always non-existence. The absence of pain, good, wins out over the absence of pleasure, which is just neutral. This turns our entire biological, social, and religious world upside down. Every culture on earth celebrates birth. It sees it as the ultimate good, the miracle of life. The antinatalist sees this as a mass delusion, a Pollyanna optimism. They are the ones who look at the miracle and see only the victim, the person who will one day, inevitably, wish they had not been born. This is perhaps the most forbidden idea in a world built on the command to be fruitful and multiply. It is the one simple, logical no. The no that says the game is not worth the candle, and the only way to win is to not play. The just world hypothesis. We have faced the antinatalist's cold, compassionate no, a refusal to participate in a world so full of suffering. This forces us to ask why we are so viscerally resistant to that idea. Why do we need to believe the world is not, in fact, that bad? The answer lies in a deep, powerful, and incredibly dangerous psychological bias. It is the forbidden idea that in order to survive the world's chaos, we must lie to ourselves about it. This is the just world hypothesis. It is not a philosophical argument, but a cognitive trap. It is the deep, unconscious, and often vicious need to believe that the world is fundamentally fair, that people get what they deserve and deserve what they get. It is the belief that good deeds are always rewarded and bad deeds are always punished. It is the engine behind the concept of karma. It's the voice in your head that says, what goes around comes around. On the surface, this sounds nice. It sounds optimistic. It's a comforting belief that gives us a sense of order, control, and meaning in a universe that is, as we've seen, chaotic, indifferent, and unjust. If the world is just, then we are safe. If we are good, we will be protected. But this is where the idea becomes sinister. This is where it becomes forbidden. What happens when we are confronted with unjust suffering? What happens when we see an innocent person, a victim who is not being rewarded? The just world hypothesis cannot accept this. It creates a profound cognitive dissonance. And to resolve that dissonance, the mind will perform a terrible and evil calculation. Instead of concluding the world is unjust, the mind will conclude the victim must deserve their fate. This is the dark, dark underbelly of positive thinking. It is the blaming of the victim. We see it everywhere. The woman who was assaulted must have been dressing provocatively or made bad choices. The person living in poverty must be lazy or not smart enough. The person suffering from a terrible illness must have had negative thoughts or attracted the sickness. We do this because it is terrifying to admit the truth. The truth is that terrible things happen to good people for no reason at all. And if that is true, then it means you are not safe. It means your goodness, your hard work, your positive thoughts cannot protect you. This is the terror that the just world hypothesis is built to hide. It is an act of psychological self-defense, but it is an act that victimizes the suffering twice. First, they suffer at the hands of the universe, and second, they suffer at the hands of us, the believers, who judge them for their own pain. It is the dangerous, cruel, and perhaps necessary lie we tell ourselves just to get out of bed in the morning. Lifeboat ethics. The just world hypothesis is a psychological lie we tell to feel safe. But what happens when that lie breaks? What happens when a real crisis, a real unjust situation, forces us to act? What is left of our morality then? This brings us to a place of impossible choices, a place that reveals who we really are. This is the cold, hard, and unforgiving world of lifeboat ethics. It is a thought experiment, but it is one that becomes real in famines, in wars, in pandemics, in hospital triage rooms. Imagine a lifeboat. It has been launched from a sinking ship. It is designed to hold 10 people, but there are 11 people on board. The boat is already low in the water. The storm is getting worse. With 11 people, the boat is certain to sink. Everyone will die. But with 10 people, the boat might just survive. So, what do? This is not a puzzle. This is an abyss. All your normal morality vanishes. The morality of thou shalt not kill, of all life is sacred, it evaporates in the cold salt spray. You are left with only impossible options. Do you do nothing and guarantee that everyone dies? Is that the moral choice? The choice of inaction? The choice of purity? Or do you choose? Do you sacrifice one to save 10? And if you do choose, how do you choose? Do you vote? Do you draw straws? Do you throw out the weakest, the oldest, the most injured, the one who contributes less? Do you see how quickly our civilized morality collapses into brutal calculation? This is the forbidden territory where utilitarianism, the greater good, meets deontology, the moral rule. and both fail you. The utilitarian says, yes, of course, throw one overboard. Saving 10 lives is mathematically better than saving 0. But the act, the horror of murdering an innocent person feels monstrous. The deontologist says, no, killing is always wrong. We cannot use a person as a means to an end. We must all sink together, morally pure. But this purity feels like a different kind of madness, a suicidal vanity. Lifeboat ethics destroys your moral certainty. It reveals that your morality is a luxury, a story you can afford to tell only when the boat is safe. But when the water gets high, you are not a good person or a bad person. You are just an animal trying to survive. And that truth is the real horror of the lifeboat. The noble lie. We have seen the horror of the lifeboat, the collapse of personal morality in the face of absolute necessity. Now let us zoom out. Let us apply this brutal calculation not to one boat, but to all of society. If we are willing to lie to ourselves to feel safe, the just world hypothesis, and to kill for survival, the lifeboat, then what exactly is holding civilization together? The answer is perhaps the most cynical and forbidden idea in all of political philosophy. It is the concept of the noble lie. This idea comes from Plato in the Republic. Plato was designing his perfect society, but he ran into a problem. His society was rigidly unequal. It had 3 castes: the rulers, the gold souls, the guardians, the silver souls, and the producers, the bronze and iron souls. He knew that the producers, the vast majority, would never willingly accept this inferior position. They would rebel. So, how do you make them accept it? Plato's answer was deception. He said the rulers must tell everyone a foundational myth, a lie, the noble lie. The lie was that God had created everyone from the earth and had mixed metal into their souls, some gold, the philosopher kings, some silver, the soldiers, and some bronze, the farmers and workers. And this destiny was fixed. A bronze soul could never become a gold one. It was divine will. It was unquestionable. This lie, Plato argued, was noble because it was necessary for social harmony. It was a lie told not for personal gain, but for the stability of the state. It stopped the rebellion. It kept the lifeboat of civilization afloat. This idea is terrifying, and it is everywhere. Is it not the same logic used to justify nationalism? Our nation is divinely chosen. Is it not the same logic behind organized religion, the promise of an afterlife to ensure good behavior now? Is it not the same logic behind the American dream, the myth that anyone can become gold if they just work hard enough, a myth that keeps the bronze souls working? The noble lie is the forbidden truth that all societies, all cultures are built on a foundation of convenient fictions, that justice, freedom, equality, God are not transcendent truths, but necessary deceptions. They are the stories we tell the people in the bottom of the boat to stop them from rocking it. The real question, the forbidden question, is a truth that destroys society better than a lie that saves it? The Malthusian catastrophe, the logic of scarcity. We are creatures of abundance. Our modern world is built on the assumption of more growth, more progress, more food, more life. We see a problem and we believe we can invent a solution. We see suffering and we believe we can heal it. Our entire system of morality is based on this idea of infinite expansion. But what if this is a biological delusion? What if there is a cold, simple mathematical law, older than all our philosophies, that renders our compassion futile? This is the forbidden thought at the heart of the Malthusian catastrophe. It is the simple, brutal idea that humanity is destined to outgrow its own survival, that our success is the very thing that guarantees our collapse. This idea comes from Thomas Malthus, an English cleric and economist who, in 1798, published an essay that has haunted humanity ever since. His argument was terrifyingly simple. He observed two basic, undeniable facts about us. First, that population, when unchecked by war, famine, or disease, does not grow in a straight line. It grows geometrically. It doubles. 1 becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8. It is an exponential explosion. Second, he observed that our ability to produce food, our resources, at best grows arithmetically. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. It is a slow, plodding, linear improvement, and in that simple mismatch lies the catastrophe. The geometric line of life will always, inevitably and tragically cross the arithmetic line of sustenance. This is not a maybe, it is a mathematical certainty. Malthus was not a monster. He was a mathematician. He was the first to point out that our biology, our very drive to reproduce and survive, is a time bomb. He used a powerful forbidden metaphor, nature's feast. He said the table is set, but there are not enough seats for all the guests who are invited. Those who arrive and find no place must starve. This is not cruelty on nature's part. It is not evil. It is just a fact, a law, and the checks that keep the population from exploding are what we consider the greatest horrors of human existence: war, plague, and famine. These, Malthus argued, were not problems to be solved. They were the solutions. They were the only things that kept the two lines from crossing. Now think about our modern world. Our entire civilization is a project to eliminate those checks. Our medicine is a war against disease. Our global order is a war against widespread conflict. Our technology is a war against famine. We are, with the best of intentions, pressing our foot down on the geometric accelerator, while the arithmetic line of our planet's resources barely inches upward. This is the Malthusian trap. The forbidden psychological horror is that our greatest virtues, our compassion, our ingenuity, our desire to save every life, are the very things causing the inevitable collapse. We are not solving the problem. We are just making the eventual catastrophe bigger. We are building a taller, more populated, more complex tower on a foundation that cannot hold it. When the resources run out, the collapse will not be small. It will be total. This logic forces us into the most forbidden of all moral questions, the lifeboat ethics. If the lifeboat is full and there are more people in the water, is the moral act to pull them aboard and sink the entire boat, killing everyone? Or is the moral act to push them away, to save the few at the expense of the many? Malthus's logic suggests that our entire civilization is that overcrowded lifeboat, and our compassion is our doom. The utility monster. We have seen the paradox of tolerance, the idea that a value must betray itself in order to survive. This is a crack in the foundation of our moral systems, and it leads us to question the most common and seemingly logical moral system we have, utilitarianism, the idea of the greatest good for the greatest number. It sounds so simple, so rational. It's the logic we use in the lifeboat. It's the logic we use in public policy. We weigh the happiness and suffering, and we choose the option that maximizes happiness. But what if this logical system has a monster hiding inside it, a logical flaw so profound it devours the very morality it claims to create? This is the thought experiment of the utility monster, proposed by philosopher Robert Nozick, the same mind who gave us the experience machine. This idea is a devastating critique of the greater good. Imagine a hypothetical being. This being is a utility monster. It is a creature that experiences pleasure and pain on a scale we cannot even imagine. One single unit of pleasure for this monster feels 1,000,000 times more intense than a human's greatest joy. And one single unit of pain for this monster is 1,000,000 times more agonizing than a human's deepest suffering. Now, let us apply the strict logic of utilitarianism. The greatest good for the greatest number. If we have a limited resource, say a piece of food or a dose of medicine, where should it go? To a starving child or to the utility monster? The child will get, say, 10 units of happiness from the food, But the monster will get 10 million units of happiness. Therefore, according to the pure cold logic of maximizing the good, we must give the food to the monster. Every time it gets worse. What if the monster gets pleasure from human suffering? What if torturing one human gives the monster 1 billion units of pleasure while the human only experiences 1 million units of pain? The math is unavoidable. The net utility of the universe increases. Therefore, utilitarianism demands that we feed the human to the monster. This is the logical flaw. A system designed to be good and fair has just justified the most monstrous act imaginable. It has revealed that in the quest for a total sum of happiness, the individual is worthless. The individual, you, your pain, your joy, you are just a number to be added or subtracted from the grand total. The utility monster shows us that the greater good is a terrifyingly empty phrase. It can be used to justify anything. It is the same logic that leads to the lifeboat, to the noble lie, to the paradox of tolerance. It is the logic that says an individual can and must be sacrificed for the group. This thought experiment is a profound and forbidden warning. It tells us that any moral system based only on calculation, only on numbers, only on the greater good, will always eventually create monsters. The Dark Forest. Hypothesis: the logic of cosmic silence. We have looked at the great filter, the idea that something prevents life from reaching us. But now we must consider a far more terrifying and perhaps more logical reason for the silence of the cosmos. This is the dark forest hypothesis, an answer to the Fermi paradox so chilling that it reframes our entire place in the universe. The paradox is simple: the universe is ancient and vast, so where is everybody? The dark forest answer is equally simple: they are hiding, and they are quiet, because they know that to be seen is to be destroyed. The universe is not a cradle waiting to meet us. It is a dark forest filled with unseen hunters, and in this forest, every civilization is a silent, terrified predator. This is the forbidden thought that our joyful, naive attempts to contact alien life, the golden records, the radio broadcasts sent into the void, are not acts of friendship. They are the catastrophic mistakes of a child screaming in a dark wood, telling every predator exactly where it is. What if the only reason we are alive is that no one has noticed us yet? This idea, popularized by the science fiction author Liu Cixin, is not just a story. It is a terrifyingly logical solution based on two simple axioms. First, the primary goal of every civilization is to survive. Second, you can never be certain of another civilization's intentions. Imagine you are that hunter in the dark forest. You are walking silently, holding your breath. Suddenly you hear a rustle. You see another hunter. You do not know their mind. Are they peaceful? Are they like you? Or are they a threat? You cannot risk it. If you call out hello, you reveal your own position. If you wait to see what they do, you give them the first strike advantage. The only logically safe in terms of survival move is to eliminate the threat before it can eliminate you. This is the logic of cosmic warfare. The universe is a zero-sum game where the only winning move is to ensure you are the only one left playing. This theory suggests that any civilization advanced enough to travel between the stars is also advanced enough to understand this terrible logic. They would understand that the moment they reveal themselves, they start a clock. And they would also understand chain of suspicion. If they meet you, they know you are thinking of destroying them, just as you are thinking of destroying them. The safest, cleanest solution is to never let that chain begin. A cosmic sociology emerges from this, and it is horrifying. It means that benevolence and malevolence are meaningless terms. There is only survival. An advanced civilization would not destroy a nascent one like ours out of hatred. They would destroy us out of prudence. They would see our noisy radio signals as the digital equivalent of a wildfire threatening to expose the entire forest. They would extinguish us as quietly and efficiently as possible. This is the dark forest strike. It is a preventative measure. So when we look at the silent stars, we are not looking at an empty universe. We are looking at a universe where everyone is holding their breath. The silence is not an absence of life. The silence is the proof of life. It is the sound of universal, intelligent fear. Cosmic indifferentism, the Lovecraftian dread of a universe without us. For centuries, we have looked to the cosmos and asked, what is our purpose? We have created gods and philosophies that place us at the center of a grand narrative. We matter. The universe, we believe, is either a stage built for us by a loving creator, or, as the optimists believe, a meaningful system we are here to understand. But there is a third, more forbidden idea. It is the core of Lovecraftian horror, known as cosmic indifferentism. This is the thought that the universe is not hostile, it is not friendly. It simply does not care. It does not know we exist. We are a random, meaningless chemical reaction that occurred on a speck of dust orbiting an unremarkable star in a forgotten corner of one of hundreds of billions of galaxies. Our triumphs, our tragedies, our wars, our art, our love, all of it is of no more consequence to the cosmos than a single mold spore growing on a piece of bread. This is not atheism, which simply denies a god. This is indifferentism, which posits a universe so vast, so ancient, and so utterly alien in its true workings, that our entire concept of God or purpose is a symptom of our own laughable, microscopic arrogance. This is the dread that H.P. Lovecraft wrote about. His monsters were not evil in a human sense. They were not demons tempting us to sin. They were forces. They were the great old ones, beings like Cthulhu, who were so vast and alien that their very existence was a form of cosmic truth that could shatter a human mind. If you encountered one, it would not destroy you because it hated you. It would destroy you because it stepped on you, without ever knowing or caring that you were there. This is the ultimate forbidden idea, that knowledge itself is the poison. We search for the truth of the universe, believing it will liberate us. But cosmic indifferentism suggests that the truth we are looking for is that we are nothing. The universe's secret is that there is no secret, at least none that pertains to us. This shatters the human ego more completely than any other philosophy. It means good and evil are purely local terms. The concepts of justice, mercy, and morality are human inventions that have no echo, no resonance in the vast, cold, silent mechanics of reality. Think of a black hole. It is not evil. It is just a set of physical laws operating perfectly. If you fall into it, you are destroyed. But the black hole feels nothing, knows nothing, is nothing but gravity. The universe in this view is just like that. It is a machine of infinite complexity, grinding away, following its own unknowable rules. We are at best a temporary side effect. This is the true horror, not that the universe hates us, but that we are so completely, totally, and absolutely irrelevant. And the silence we hear from the stars is the sound of that indifference. The absurdity of meaning, Sisyphus and the rock. We have seen that the universe is indifferent, that our values may be arbitrary, that we may be alone. So, in the face of all this, what is the point? Why continue? This is the core question of absurdism, a philosophy most famously articulated by Albert Camus. The absurd is the term he used for the fundamental conflict, the unbridgeable gap between two things. First, our deep, passionate human need to find meaning, purpose, and order in the world. And second, the cold, silent, indifferent universe that offers none. It is the clash between our why and the universe's silent what. We are creatures who scream for meaning, in a universe that is profoundly meaningless. This is the forbidden thought that your life's deepest purpose is a story you are telling yourself to hide from the fact that there is no purpose. You are Sisyphus, the mythical king condemned by the gods for eternity to push a massive boulder up a mountain only to watch it roll back down every single time, forever. Camus uses this myth as the ultimate metaphor for the human condition. Think about your own life. You wake up, you work, you strive, you build, you push your own boulder up your own mountain. You are driven by the hope that one day you will reach the summit and the boulder will stay there, that your work will be finished, that you will achieve your purpose. But the absurd says, no, the boulder always rolls back down. Your achievements will be forgotten. Your successes will fade. The meaning you create is temporary. The universe and time will erase it all. This is the moment of despair. This is the absurd realization. But Camus does not stop there. He offers a rebellion. He says, the gods believe Sisyphus was in hell. They believe the pointless labor was the ultimate torture. But Camus asks, what if it isn't? He asks us to imagine Sisyphus after the rock has rolled back down. He is walking back down the mountain to get the rock again. In that moment, he is conscious. He is aware of his fate. He knows his labor is futile. He knows there is no ultimate meaning. And in that moment of lucid awareness, Camus says, Sisyphus is free. He is free because he is not tricked by false hope. He is free because he knows the truth of his condition. And by accepting it, he rebels. By choosing to walk back down, by choosing to put his shoulder to the rock anyway. He finds his meaning in the struggle itself. The forbidden idea here is that meaning is not something you find like a hidden treasure. Meaning is something you create by defying the very meaninglessness that surrounds you. Camus ends his essay with a truly forbidden sentence. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Your life is that rock, the universe is that mountain, and your purpose is to find your joy, not in reaching the top, but in the simple, defiant, absurd act of pushing. Active nihilism, the urge to destroy old values. We have talked about nihilism as a passive despair, the realization that life is meaningless, the sense of being lost, of Sisyphus at the bottom of the hill, wondering, why bother? But there is another, more dangerous, more forbidden side to this. This is active nihilism, a concept from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Active nihilism is not about sadness, it is about power. It is the realization that if all the old values, good, evil, truth, God, are just human inventions, if they are lies that we have told ourselves to feel safe, then they are not just meaningless, they are shackles, they are chains. And the active nihilist feels a powerful, terrifying urge to destroy them. This is not just a quiet, personal rejection. This is a will to power, expressed as a desire to take a hammer to the foundations of civilization. It is the belief that the old world, with its old false morality, must be burned to the ground before anything new or true can be built in its place. Nietzsche saw this as a necessary, though horrifying, stage. He famously declared, God is dead, and we have killed him. He meant that the idea of a divine external source of meaning had lost its power in the modern world. But what he saw was that we had not yet faced the consequences. We had killed God, but we tried to keep the shadows of God. We kept the old morality. Be kind, be humble, be selfless, without the divine authority that once backed it up. Nietzsche called this a weakness. He argued that this slave morality was designed to make the powerful feel guilty for their strength, and the weak feel virtuous for their weakness. The active nihilist is the one who sees this. He is the breaker. He rejects the beautiful lies of the old world and is willing to live in the ugly truth. He is the one who asks, why is this good and this evil? And when the answer is just because that's what we've always been told, he throws the answer and the person who gave it into the fire. This is a forbidden idea because we see its echo in the most destructive movements in human history. It is the logic of the revolutionary who says everything must be destroyed. It is the thought that to create a new world, you must first become a destroyer of the old one. It is a philosophy of pure, terrifying creative destruction. The active nihilist is the person who stands in the ruins of the temple and laughs because they are finally free from the lies that built it. The question Nietzsche forces us to ask is, what happens after the destruction? Active nihilism is the fire. It is the chaotic, powerful, and utterly amoral force that clears the land. But it has no plan for what to build in its place. The ethics of immortality, the stagnation of the soul. What if you did not have to die? What if this night, this moment of quiet contemplation, was not one day closer to your end, but just one of an infinite number of nights, stretching before you like an endless, calm ocean? This is the ultimate human dream, the fantasy that sits beneath every religion, every myth, and now every great technological ambition. We are the only creatures on earth cursed with the knowledge of our own mortality, and so we have defined our ultimate victory as the defeat of death. But here, in the quiet, we must ask the most forbidden question of all: what if the one thing we crave is the one thing that would destroy our humanity? What if the end is the only thing that gives the middle any meaning? The forbidden idea is not just that immortality is impossible, it is that immortality would be an unbearable, mind-shattering, psychological hell. It is the idea that the soul, the very essence of who you are, does not just stagnate without an end. It decays. This is no longer a simple fantasy. It is a technical problem that the wealthiest, most powerful minds on our planet are trying to solve. They speak of curing aging as if it were a disease. They speak of uploading consciousness to a digital cloud, of becoming digital gods, free from the failure of the flesh. They see mortality as a bug in the system, a flaw in the human machine that can be engineered away. But the philosopher asks the question the engineer ignores. What is the purpose of a machine that runs forever? What happens to the software of the self when the hardware never fails? We have been programmed by biology to assume that more life is better life. But the ethics of immortality begin with this truth. A finite life has a shape. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That end, that final, inescapable boundary, is what gives the entire picture its form. It is the frame that makes the painting visible. Imagine your life as a story. It is a story that is compelling because it is going somewhere. There is tension, there is risk, there are stakes. A character who cannot die, who faces no true risk, is a boring character. There is no drama, there is no courage, there is no sacrifice. Now, apply that to you. If you could not die, why would you risk anything? Why would you ever be brave? Bravery requires the possibility of loss. Why would you be sacrificial? Sacrifice requires that what you give costs you something. Why would you tell someone you love them today when you have 10,000 years or 1,000,000 to get around to it? The urgency of now, this precious, fleeting, vibrating now that we are sharing in the dark, is created entirely by the shadow of then. Remove that shadow, and now becomes a meaningless, flat, eternal plane. This is the beginning of the stagnation. Our entire psychological structure is built on adaptation. We change because the world changes, and because we know we have limited time. We grow, we learn, we shed old skins, we evolve, we become new people because we must. Death is the ultimate incentive. It is the divine pressure. It is the fire that forges identity. An immortal being has no incentive to change at all. After 500 years, or 1,000, or 1,000,000, what would you be? You would be a statue of the person you were when you solved death. You would be a perfect frozen echo, a ghost trapped in a machine that will not break. Your opinions, your memories, your loves, your hates. They would become rigid, calcified. You would be a relic, a living fossil, watching the real world, the world of birth and change and struggle and death, pass you by like a river you can no longer step into. You would not be a participant, you would be a spectator. This is where the ethical problem becomes a personal horror. Think of your most precious memories, the joy of your first love, the sharp defining pain of your first loss. They are precious because they are your finite experiences. They shaped you. Now, imagine having a million first loves, a million losses. The memories would blur into a statistical average. They would cease to mean anything. Love itself would become a pattern, a behavior you repeat. But the intensity, the meaning, the holiness of it would have been diluted to nothing by the sheer, crushing weight of repetition. You would become a curator of a museum of memories so vast that no single exhibit matters. This is the true hell of immortality. It is not fire and brimstone, it is boredom, not the simple boredom of a long afternoon, but a cosmic boredom, a complete and total exhaustion of all possible human experiences. After you have read every book, learned every skill, heard every song, traveled to every star, what is left? Only the waiting. You would become a still, stagnant pond, and the soul you fought so hard to preserve would become a sickness, and the societal ethics are just as forbidden. Who gets this gift? The rich? The powerful? What happens to the world when an unchanging, immortal elite rules over a dying, changing, mortal populace? It is the ultimate tyranny, a world where the old never give way to the new, where new ideas cannot rise. Society would stagnate just like the individual. This, then, is the final truth. We do not fear the end. We fear the loss of the present. We are so desperate to hold on to the now that we would trade meaning for duration. But the gift of eternal life is the curse of eternal meaninglessness. Death is not the bug. Death is the feature. The true self as a harmful myth. We spend our lives on a quest. We are told, in 1,000 different ways, to find ourselves, to be true to yourself, to discover our authentic self. This idea is the foundation of our entire culture of self-help, of career building, of romance. It is the belief that deep inside you, buried beneath your social conditioning, your fears, and your compromises, there is a core, a true self, a solid, unchanging, authentic you. And your life's purpose is to find it and express it. But what if this is not just a myth, but the most harmful myth we have? This is the forbidden thought that the true self does not exist, and that the search for it is the very thing causing your anxiety, your guilt, and your feeling of being an imposter. What if you are not a thing to be found, but a process that you must create every single day? This idea is a trap because it sets an impossible standard. It implies that your self is a static object, a finished statue, and you just have to dig it out of the marble. So when you feel conflicted, when you are a different person with your parents than you are with your friends or your partner, you feel a sharp sense of guilt. You feel inauthentic. You feel like a fraud. You ask, which one is the real me? And the forbidden answer is, all of them, and none of them. We have already explored the illusion of the self, the empty room. We have seen that you are not a single, continuous entity, but a bundle of perceptions. You are not a noun. You are a verb. You are not a being. You are a becoming. The you of today is a snapshot, a temporary pattern that has emerged from your biology, your experiences, your relationships, and your choices. The true self myth is harmful because it makes you fear change. It makes you cling to an old version of yourself. I can't do that. That's not me. And in doing so, you close the door to growth. It creates a rigid, brittle identity when the very nature of life and of consciousness is fluidity. It is the ultimate psychological prison It tells you there is a correct way to be you, and you are constantly failing to live up to it. It makes you a detective, looking for clues to a past self, rather than an artist, creating the self you want to be next. True liberation is not finding yourself. It is the realization that there is no self to find. There is only you, this thought, this action, this preference. Right now, you are not a solid thing, you are a story, and the most authentic thing you can ever do is to be the one holding the pen and consciously decide what to write on the next page. The incomprehensibility of now, the illusion of time. There is only one moment you ever truly experience, the present, this very instant. Now, it is the only reality. The past is a memory, a ghost. The future is an anticipation, a dream. All of your life, all of existence, happens in this tiny, fleeting, precious now. But where is it? This is the central, incomprehensible paradox of time. The moment you try to grasp the present, the instant you become aware of now, it is already gone. It has already become the past. It has already become a memory. This is the forbidden thought, that the present moment, the one thing you believe is real, is the most profound and complex illusion your mind has ever created. You are not experiencing reality. You are, at every single moment, living in the immediate past. Your brain, as we've seen, is not an instant receiver. It is a processor, and it takes time to process. It takes milliseconds for the light hitting your retina to be converted into an electrical signal, travel the optic nerve, and be assembled by your brain into what you see. It takes time for the vibrations in the air to be interpreted as this voice. By the time you experience anything, the event itself is over. The now you perceive is not the actual now. It is a neurological echo. It is your brain's report on what just happened. This is not just a philosophical trick. It is a biological fact. You are always, fractionally, behind the curve of reality. But the illusion is even deeper. Your brain does not just delay reality, it edits it. It does not present you with a stream of disconnected milliseconds. That would be chaotic, unlivable. Instead, your consciousness gathers a window of time, roughly 2 to 3 seconds, and stitches it together into a smooth, flowing, cohesive feeling. It creates a perceptual present. This is why a single note on a piano and a rapid melody feel different. Your brain packages them. This is why when you are in a moment of intense fear, like a car crash, time seems to slow down. It is not. Your brain is simply processing more information within that window, creating more frames, making the memory denser. So, what is time? The block universe theory in physics suggests a reality far stranger. It suggests that all of time, past, present, and future, already exists simultaneously. That time does not flow, it is just there. And what you call now is just the spotlight of your consciousness, moving along that static four-dimensional block. The future is already there. The past is still there. Your sense of flow is the illusion. You are not moving through time. You are just revealing it to yourself. The embrace of Amor. Fati, loving your inevitable fate. We have reached the end. We have journeyed through 32 ideas that try to dismantle our reality. We have seen that our self is an illusion. Our memories are fictions. Our choices may not be our own. Morality may be arbitrary. The universe is indifferent. And our now is a neurological ghost. What is left? In the face of this total, crushing, existential weight, what is the final forbidden thought? It is not despair. It is not nihilism. It is love. This is the concept Friedrich Nietzsche called Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. It is the most radical, rebellious, and powerful idea of all. It is the forbidden thought that you should not just accept your life or endure your life. You must love it. You must will it. You must look at every single moment of your existence, the pain, the joy, the boredom, the terror, the beauty, the shame, and say, yes, again, forever. This is the ultimate answer to the nightmare of eternal recurrence. That idea asked, if you had to live this exact life, moment by moment, an infinite number of times, would you be crushed? Amor Fati is the ability to look that demon in the eye and shout, yes. This is not passive resignation. It is not making the best of it. It is an active, joyful affirmation. It is the realization that to wish anything in your past had been different, even the most agonizing, terrible part, is to wish that you, the you who exists right now, did not exist. Because you were forged by that pain. You were created by that mistake. You are not just the product of your past. You are your past. To negate 1 second of it is to negate the entirety of it. We spend our lives in a state of negotiation with reality. We say, if only I had gotten that job, if only I hadn't said that, if only I were different. This is a life of negation, a life lived in resistance to what is. Amor Fati is the final liberation. It is the cessation of war against reality. It is to look at the unchangeable past, the uncontrollable present, and the unknowable future, and to love it because it is what it is. It transforms suffering. The suffering is no longer a punishment, a sign that something went wrong. The suffering becomes a feature. It becomes necessary. It is the shadow that gives the light its meaning. This is the final, forbidden truth. You are not the victim of your life. You are not the prisoner of your fate. By loving your fate, you become your fate. You become the creator. Even as you acknowledge you have no control, you stop trying to find meaning in an indifferent cosmos, and you create it by the sheer, defiant, joyful act of loving the life you actually have. Not many reach the end awake. Leave a single word that defines this journey, and share it with someone who might need to hear it tonight.